So my name is Anastasia. I'm head of the St. Petersburg Art Residency, which is now functioning as a virtual art residency because of the current global health crisis. And we've launched a special program in March 2020. And art professionals around the world can join to enter this shared space to present their art and show how the creative process is going on during these challenging times. And we had a lot of artists who joined during the last couple of months, which was a surprise for us because we actually did not expect such a large number, but it was amazing because besides keeping in touch with our network, we also got to know a lot of amazing new artists, and Cynthia is one of them, and she was one of the first artists who joined this virtual platform and one of our active contributors. And today we're going to talk about your art and about how things are going on in your professional practice right now. Cynthia, where are you calling us from right now?
From Barcelona, Spain.
And can you just give us a general idea about how things are going on in Spain?
Yeah, well, it has been very intense here for a few months. We couldn't go out, lockdown, they call it the state of alarm, which we're kind of still in, but this Tuesday we're in phase 2. So things are getting much better, which makes me so happy. Yesterday I took a walk to the beach, even though you can't go in the water yet, to see people out. People are in the cafes, which is the lifestyle here in Spain. So that was very disconcerting to walk out during the pandemic and see no one in the cafes, no one in the street. There's a lot of street life in Spain, and that's why I love to be here. So that was not easy, but it is getting much, much better now. And it's, you could tell it's in the air that people are happier. Yeah.
So it's slowly stabilizing. Do you have a feeling that things are going back to normal?
Yes, just slowly. And people, I'm kind of surprised, people are quite obedient here. Like they're listening to the government and wearing masks, most of the people, which is so strange. But, I was in China for a while, and that's like very common there to wear masks. So it was strange to be in Europe with that kind of practice. But it is much better. And I think by the end of the month, you can actually travel. And in July,
wow.
July, they're opening up the tourism again.
Okay,
So,
this is a very positive scenario.
Yeah, yes.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah. And in fact, I have a ticket to New York for the end of July. And I think I'll be able to do that. I mean, many things have been canceled because I was supposed to have a kind of important show at my university in New York. And I was going to give a master class there to students and involve the students in my exhibit, upstate New York. That they have postponed that for a year.
Wow, yeah. Well, we are also dealing with a lot of things being postponed, partly canceled, and it was also a very rough time for us, to get together and find a new way of how to continue the cultural production when everything is so insecure and you can't actually plan anything. So in this sense, the virtual residency and virtual spa was helpful to see that artists are still working, and there is still a great process going on behind closed doors, which means that we should also keep working and finding ways to support them.
Right. So, well, I'm very grateful for this virtual residency. It has really helped me. I love being in touch with people in different parts of the world where you can't travel at all. And it was exciting for me to see artists put their work up and get feedback and give feedback. So I'm really grateful for being in this residency. Thank you.
Thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of artists, this idea of isolation is not so unusual, but I think an important part is the connection with life outside of your studio, at least for me. And that's what has been the difficult part, not being able to go in and out of my world here and the everyday world, because that's a big part of my work, you know.
And how, in general, how did this new situation influence your work or your working strategy? So you wrote about being creative or having to be creative with materials, and can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it has intensified what I usually do, which is I collect things in my environment, most of the time nature. So that I couldn't go out and get more leaves or more branches or dirt or whatever I usually use. But I did, I did have some things in my studio, so I just reused them and made different configurations with the same materials, which was really kind of a beautiful realization for me, even though I had kind of doing that because I've also studied psychology, and I like the metaphor of like using what you have and going deeper into that in a new way, you know. So I have these raw materials, and every time I feel like I want to go a little bit deeper with the same material. You know, I want to make something even more, I don't know, cohesive or meaningful. So that's been a great practice for me. And as you have mentioned, it's a wonderful way of letting go, to make something, take it apart, and then make something totally different. So that has been very kind of healing, really, during this time. You know,
Did you? I can imagine it is kind of hard to cope with having to destroy in a way your work by yourself. And but it's of course I love your philosophic approach to that, and this idea that everything is being recycled and regenerated, and one thing is very organically, naturally developing into a different thing. That's great. But did you use this way of working before, or was it something that you started using during the quarantine?
I did it a little bit before. I mean, I do love using unusual materials for art. You know, there's kind of like an arte povera part to my world, where I don't like industrialized things or things that you buy in a store. I mean, it was hard because I couldn't go out and get more of those kind of things from nature. But, and I was doing a few ephemerals, but installations, but I've really felt the need to work a lot during this pandemic. It's like that's all I wanted to do. And so I don't, you know, I don't have a lot of wall space. So a lot of my things that I do are like from circumstance. I mean, I don't have the wall space, so I take it down, and it is a great feeling to let go of something that you love, you know, because that's something else as part of my practice, that I have to create, I have to kind of fall in love with the process. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's becoming much more than actually creating, producing an installation, but there is a lot of things. There are a lot of things happening outside of the process.
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions, and I think we don't have to wait for the end of the talk to actually accept questions, because we wanted to have an informal talk, and I will just read them. And the first one comes from my colleague Nazar, who is asking, why does Cynthia live in Barcelona? Oh, right, because we
Yeah,
forgot to mention
that is a
that.
long story.
Maybe it's a good point to talk a little bit about your background, a couple of things from your life story.
Okay, yeah. I have kind of a long life compared to a lot of other artists in the in the residency. So, um, to tell you the truth, it is a long story, but I'm going to cut it short. I was working in a hotel in Switzerland. I met a Spanish woman. She invited me to her house. All of her friends were artists. I became friends with them. I was living in Queens, New York, and we just started to go back and forth to visit each other. And one of those summers, I stayed in someone's house, and one thing led to another. And I've always really wanted to live in Europe. My paternal grandfather is from Italy. So there was that attraction for me to the Mediterranean. And also, language is a big part of my love. You know, after creating things, visual creation, words and language is a deep love of mine. So I like language. I do like being in foreign places. I think I feel freer. I kind of like being a little bit of an observer and an outsider as an artist. So, I mean, that could work for me and against me, but I make it work for me. So that's kind of how I got here. And then, you know, I've been here now 18 years, I think.
That's a lot. What is are there any things you especially enjoy about living in Barcelona?
It's a gorgeous city. It's very beautiful. People are nice. The weather is amazing. um, yeah, it's just,
And that's actually pretty much enough for, you know, being happy about the place where you live. Great people and
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, I think that's important. My environment is very important to me. I mean, I like to create environments that are uplifting and positive at this point in my life. And I like to be in environments that are uplifting and positive. So um, I think Europe for me, even though I'm American, I do feel more European American. You know, I was brought up very Italian American with my grandparents from Italy. So, and I have done, I mean, I think I get a lot of information, traveling, language that really helps my artist practice. You know, it's a part of what I do. It's really about life, I suppose, in the end. It's about being in life and feeling like you're connected. And for me, that's travel, that's language, that's meeting new people, and then coming to my little world and creating after I have all of that information. Um, but it is important to get back out into the world, which is what I have missed these last 2.5 months. And I can just feel my spirit lifting because when I go out, there's more people, they're sitting, they're enjoying a meal together. Um, this makes me very happy. And I work well when I'm happy.
This is realm for everyone, I suppose. Thank
Yeah.
you, Cynthia. There are a couple of other comments and questions. One of our subscribers and viewers now, who is also part of the virtual residency, asks about your. So I love what you did with the tea bags and the shoes. So do I. I think the shoes have been. have been kind of very popular at the virtual residency, and when I saw them, I was really amazed by the tenderness, then the fragility, but also the strong message, and it's a great series, and I think everyone would be interested in hearing more about that, and maybe seeing some shoes if you have them in the studio. That would be great.
Yeah, yeah, yes. Well, let's see where to begin. But the tea shoes, I also love things that have a smell. And this is what's happening with these tea shoes. But again, it was me searching for materials that were extremely accessible. And I also love the texture and the color. Let me show you. You showed me how to do this. So you see these? Can you see
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. All right. Let me show you some other. Yes, and show you these other tea shoes. These shoes are made out of lavender tea.
Oh,
And
yeah.
over
Beautiful.
here, this is a black tea. Wait, can you see? And here,
Yeah.
this is like a flower tea. I don't know if you can
Okay,
see
wow.
this.
A lot of different kinds of
So,
tea.
so what I mean, I could, yes. Well, it happened when I was in the Swatch Art Peace Hotel in China. And every time you went anywhere, they offered you tea. And even in the studios, there are many, many Chinese artists in the residency. And you would go into the studio, and the first thing they do is they hand you a cup of tea. But teas that I have never seen in my life, flowers floating in the tea, lavender teas, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful material. So it organically became something I was curious about and something that I wanted to use. And that's when I started to make the tea shoes. So it was something that was in my everyday life, but also it was like offered to me. And then I kind of transformed it into a material. And now I like to do that, whenever I see an interesting looking tea, I know that I could use that material for a shoe.
This is
So
this sentence would sound really unusual if you put it completely out of context.
I know. Sometimes I feel like I have to talk so much and explain what I do because it kind of doesn't make sense just, out of context. Or maybe not that it doesn't make sense, but it's surprising, which I kind of like, I must admit.
Which is
I like,
thing in art and just in life.
yeah.
But why shoes? I mean, you can do following the logic. You can do anything with a tea bag. So why were you attracted to this object, the shoe, as an object?
I am. I love shoes. I think of all the apparel that one uses, this is uh, the most amazing to me and attractive. Also, you walk. Walking is important. It's something that I do a lot of. And it does connect you to the earth. Your feet and your shoes are connected to the earth. And this is also something that I have a challenge with. I float. I have, I don't know if it's because of my own makeup or my own personality, but I have a tendency to float. So I need to remind myself to be connected to the earth. And I think this is why I search out nature also, and trees especially, um, to feel a part of the world, to feel a part of nature, um, and to be grounded. So I think it has to do with that. But I have to admit that when I work, I don't think very much, and I'm quite intuitive and experimental. So I love that you're asking me these questions because sometimes I get great ideas from my answers, which I've never thought of before. You know, I think that's what's
Uh,
great about. Yeah.
It is.
Doing
So
it.
the shoes. I think I've asked you on the online platform already. But are those shoes wearable for performance or any other artistic activity, or are they solely an art object independent from whatever that you can just put on a podium and enjoy as a sculpture or as an art object?
They started out as just an art object. Um, Also, I wanted something that was very identifiable and accessible. So that's why I started to do shoes and dresses and hats. Um, but I have been approached by like fashion people, which I am not against. I don't mind. I mean, I could see some of these as prototypes for actual shoes. The ones that I make, the more simple ones, I did in fact wear a pair of them in a performance that I did my last show here in Barcelona. And that was interesting for me to actually put on a pair of these. So I think that's happening again organically. You know, it wasn't my first intention was just to, I guess, to make something satisfying and meaningful to me as an art object, right? But now it's kind of blossomed into something else. You know, it once you what you do in your studio, I think once you take it out of your studio, it enters a lot of different realms, and then you decide where you want to go with that. You know. But I love, not that I am a fashionista or a fashion anything, but I love the idea of clothes and shoes and hats, things that are part of the everyday life. This I love. Um, and some of my inspirations have been from women who have done textile. I mean, I have done textile design in New York for a little while and studied it a little bit. Um, and so I can kind of see at this point in my life this circle, like everything coming together of everything that I've done. And now I can kind of make a collage of all of these different practices and processes that I've learned, you know.
Yeah. I will follow up on some of the comments and questions. Yes, did you consider to start using other natural materials like your hair when your plant material would run out?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, I have used my hair a little bit, not a lot. And I love pieces. I've seen very beautiful pieces of women, especially who have sewn, like embroidered with their hair. Um, no, I will consider anything organic. When I did start to use my hair a little bit, it was a little bit too much for me. You know, it was like too me. I think I don't, I use myself as a starting point, but I do like to become more universal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I have bags of my hair. So yeah, that's in my
Okay.
supply area.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, it's amazing to hear more about your practice, and we able to see some of your studio.
Yes,
Um, I think we've
definitely.
talked a little bit about this situation of living and working in the same space. It is actually something that we promote at the St. Petersburg Art Residency because we are limited in space and we can't give every artist an individual studio. So I kind of love the concept of having this very close daily connection to your art. But how does it feel like? You are living in an art gallery, in a self-made gallery, in a total installation. Do you
Yeah.
kind of separate your working and living space? How does that work?
Nothing is separate. Um, I could show you my bed in the middle of my studio. Do you want to see the studio now a little bit?
Yeah,
Should I show you?
great.
Let me show you. Let's see. Okay, so here's my bed. Okay, here's something I was working on. Shoes. Now these are dirt shoes with shells, and um, and some textile. You know, it's gouache on. I also do printmaking, so there's some printmaking. Then over here we have. I mean, I try to arrange it, even in my living space. I try to arrange it as like an installation. I also bought these gorgeous flowers this morning, these
Ah,
sunflowers,
beautiful.
which really make me happy. And
Very
then I
uplifting.
have, yes, and then I have these vases that I make out of paper. Um, let's see, then here's this. So all of these figures, I kind of trace my body, and then it goes someplace else. And then
I think I just said that it's such an intensive space. It's very rich in art and different impressions. Do you feel comfortable in this environment?
I do. Um, in fact, I even have people that come here and say, "Oh, I feel so like there's such a nice energy here." And before living here, it was just my studio, I could never take a nap during the day. This is the only space that I could take a nap for
Oh,
some reason. I was calm. So I think the actual space has a nice energy. And then I feel very comfortable. I mean, sometimes I have to clear things out, and I clean a lot. I take things down. I want to see a white wall for a while, but I kind of like being literally in my work. You know, I'm like
that's a beautiful
sleeping.
way. That's a beautiful way to experience art, also to experience your own art. Or, you know, I think it's a privilege to be able to enter this art field, and it is so very personal and intimate, and it is like the space is speaking to you, and there are a lot of voices telling you great things.
I was just going to say, yeah, sometimes the actual space gives me ideas, or really it's more the materials that give me ideas. And it's funny because I just reconnected with a person that I hadn't seen in 40
Oh
years.
my God.
Yes.
Wow.
And he told me, I don't even remember him very well, but he told me that 40 years ago, I did the same practice. I would go off in the forest and I would collect things. And I don't remember that, but I felt kind of great that, this really is a part of me.
So you've been
Looking
doing it
outside
for
of
a while.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But again, because I don't think so much about what I'm doing, I just do it, kind of, and experiment a lot. It's nice to stop sometimes and say, "Oh, what did I just do?" You know. So and this is very nice too, to have battery. Let me connect.
I will read some of the other comments, and okay, another comment. I honestly always think about forest when see Cynthia's work. It contrasts with her living in a big city. Also, it can be an issue for museum curators in the future. Hope Cynthia will help them to save the materials. Okay, I see. And Nazar, I absolutely agree about this association with a forest. And I took a walk in the woods today in the morning, and it was a great introduction to this interview because after getting to know your works, I think many will look at all those things we see when we're outside with some new visions. because you start seeing those branches and pieces of wood and leaves not just like elements of nature, but as something that has its own voice, has a huge creative potential. I think there are two questions we can take out of these comments. The first one is, how do you feel about living in such a big city like Barcelona?
Well, it's kind of a paradox. I mean, I love cities. I love to walk out and see a lot of activity. And that maybe is why I crave nature so much. You know, there is uh, a dual thing here where I love New York City, I love Paris, but also during this pandemic, it's the first time I thought that I wanted to live in nature. It was just this, the city is too much. I can't even walk in the city. I have to wear a mask. But I think it's about balance for me, you know, personally. I need both.
Yeah.
And I feel the energy from both. And the nature, I know there's a question about conservation with organic materials, but I also know for years there have been lots of research on how to preserve as far as art. I remember the last time years ago when I was at Art Basel, there was a whole section that was dedicated to artists who use organic and natural materials. So there's ongoing research about that. I personally can't really worry about that when I'm creating something. That's just my own approach. And I mean, if you have an idea and you have a feeling, I think you have to act on it and not think it's going to live for 200 years or whatever. So that's just and I also see when you do organic things or ephemeral installations, there's documentation now, there's video,
Yeah.
there's performance with it. So you can take it into other practices, you know, dance. I mean, I love the idea of like scenery in a dance. These are other things that inspire me a lot. For the last week, I don't even know why, I was watching videos of Mikhail Baryshnikov,
Mm-hmm.
who just brings me to another place when I see him dance. I did see him many years ago in New York perform. So again, I think it's like all of these different things feed my practice, and it really is just things that I enjoy in life, you know. And this thing with Mother Nature, I'm even learning as I am using nature, I am learning more about her, and I'm learning more about her history, you know, with the world, and how she was fine until there was like an industrial revolution. And then she was abused, you know, began to be abused, and she had these secrets that are now concealed. So, that's, I think what I want to do is heighten her beauty again and extract some things to look at them in a different way, because she has been kind of covered up and chopped up and you know. So it's kind of an important part of my work now to do that, you know. And I do relate it a little bit to the feminine, the saga of women in history, especially women artists in history. So there's that.
Thank you. Thank you. Some other questions and comments. One from Eliana, who we interviewed last Saturday, also our both offline and current online artist in residency. How or what do you think will be different after this pandemic is over, for you and for art, for
Mm-hmm.
for inside, I mean, inside of you. So I suppose Ileana is interested in how things will change in art for you, both outside and inside. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you, Eliana. Yeah, I watched her interview. It was wonderful. Um, well, as far as myself, my personal life in the art world, it has postponed things or canceled things. That's one part of it. Um, I think it's helped me in a way become even more introspective than I am. For the world around me, I noticed a different kind of kindness that people were professing to each other, because I haven't showed you, but I have a terrace, and it's kind of like there's many terraces. I'm like in the back of a building, and we can all see each other. So during these few months, we have connected in a way that is unbelievable. I mean, I never would have. I've been here for so long. I've talked to the person next to me on the terrace, and that has changed totally. And hopefully I think that will continue, because I was in the street the other day, and this woman, she had a mask on, and she goes, "Oh, hi." I didn't know who she was, and then I realized she was one of the terrace people.
Oh.
People that I had seen, because every night at 8 o'clock we would go out and applaud the healthcare workers, and people would celebrate together. Total strangers were celebrating. I think some of that will stay. I think some of that, I've even seen it in some of my friends, that they're kinder to people, like in the street, like homeless people. And it seems like there's a deeper understanding because we had that common denominator of everyone being in the same situation.
Mm.
Hopefully, everyone says hopefully, but I kind of believe, I really do believe in the human spirit, and people really want to be good and do good things for people. This has helped me thinking this way, and maybe it's a choice, but that's what I choose. I
And
don't know if I've answered her question.
what do you think about art? So I can also try to answer this question, although it was not addressed to me directly.
Yes.
I'm talking about that a lot with different colleagues. And I think, well, first of all, we are expecting to see a lot of projects dedicated to the pandemic and isolation. So I think artists and curators will be working with those themes for quite a while from now, quite a period of time. And second, I think we might get a better idea of what is responsible creativity. So how we can work in a way that is more friendly for the environment. And I think we will be more responsible towards our professional activities and think, okay, do I really need to travel to the other part of the world for 3 days to give a lecture? Or I can also do it online and more of those things. So because there's been a lot of flying and building, producing in the art world during the last decade, and it is definitely something to think about. That was a long talk, but it was absolutely exciting. And is there something you would like to wish our subscribers and everyone who will be watching this interview, other fellow artists? Do you have some final words?
Um, well, I think my final word is how I feel. Are you there?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Gratitude, I think, for being in a, yes, you can hear me. My final word is how I feel. And it's gratitude for being here, gratitude for this pandemic funds. And I think that I really do believe that art is very healing, or any kind of creativity that you can practice. And I really think, I mean, I used to write this in my newsletters, that art saves lives. I mean, even if we're talking on a mental or psychological level. But I think I'm just grateful, grateful for being in the residency, and for people listening in. And anyone who has any questions, you know, they could send them to me or to you. Um,
Thank you, everyone. And Cynthia, thank you so much. We wish you all the best. We're looking forward to
Thank you.
hearing more from you in our virtual studio. And
Okay.
I will be looking forward to our next interview on Saturday next week. So tune in and visit the virtual studio online. We've been also running a crowdfunding campaign for a while. So if you like what we're doing, please feel free to support us.